guys, so in today's video we'll be talking about the reflex arc. So there are some activities that do not reach the brain. It will just pass through the spinal cord and down to the place that needed to be stimulated. They are called autonomy activity or involuntary action, just like thinking, coughing. All these are reflex action that you don't have control over. You get? So the reflex arc is the functional unit of the nervous system. Structurally, it is the pathway through which impulses are conducted from a receptor, example the skin, to the central nervous system, the spinal cord, and back to the effector organ, muscle or gland. So it bypasses the brain to the spinal cord. The receptor organ, we carry it, for instance the skin, it will now go to the spinal cord. It will not reach the brain. It bypasses the brain and down to the effector organ, which is muscle. We are going to use this diagram to explain the reflex arc. In the receptor of an afferent neuron or a sensory neuron, that is this sensory organ now, for instance the skin with the sense of touch, it can be the eye with the sense of sight. In this sensory organ now, we have the receptive dendrites. This is the receptive dendrites of a sensory neuron. It will now pass through the neuroglia, and I told you that neuroglia connects afferent and the efferent neuron outside the spinal cord to become one. So this sensory organ now will pass through this neuroglia to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. See, this dot now is the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. It passes through it and reaches the posterior horn cell of the spinal cord. See it here, and enter the gray matter of the spinal. This is the gray matter. This space now is the gray matter, and it's going to terminate to form the terminal dendrites. And you know, when I was discussing the terminal dendrite, I told you that it ended or terminated as the end foot. See it here. Is this end foot now that will release acetylcholine. It will stimulate this connector neuron. So there will be passage or transmission of impulse, nerve impulse, to the connector neuron. So this is a synapse. I told you that a synapse is a gap, is a space whereby there is transmission of nerve impulse. So it's going to now stimulate this connector or association neuron. This is the receptive dendrites of the association neuron or connector neuron. So terminal dendrites also, have this end foot, and the end foot is going to release a chemical transmitter called acetylcholine, which will now transfer it to efferent neuron. So the efferent neuron now has entered the anterior horn cell of the spinal cord. It will now move and enter the ventral roots of the spinal cord, and also continues, and enter the neuroglia again. If you now enter the neuroglia, it will now terminate as the terminal dendrites. And I told you that the terminal dendrites of a motor organ or effector organ, it's ended to become the motor end plate. Is this motor end plate now that will now release acetylcholine or non-adrenaline that will now go and stimulate the muscle fiber. It will now stimulate the skin for there to be contraction and relaxation. The impulse will now be passed to the gland or to the muscle. This is the reflex arc. So we are going to go to the reflex action. I will now use an instance. Maybe if you touch a hot pot, how the impulse is going to transmit throughout this reflex arc. So it's also the same thing, just that the impulse, I'll be mentioning the impulse and it will be passing through this thing.